Blue Mountain Zendo, Koruji, Fall Session, Reverend Joriki, Ryuun, Baker, Osho. Mumonkan, Case 1, Joshu's Mu.
Case 1 from the Mumonkan, Joshu's Mu. A monk once asked Master Joshu, "Has a dog the Buddha nature or not?" Joshu said, "Mu." Mumon's commentary. In studying Zen, one must pass the barriers set up by the ancient Zen masters. For the attainment of incomparable satori, one has to cast away his discriminating mind. Those who have not passed the barrier and have not cast away the discriminating mind are all phantoms haunting trees and plants. Now tell me, what is the barrier of the Zen masters? Just this mood. It is thus called the gateless barrier of Zen. Those who have passed the barrier will not only see Joshu clearly, but will go hand in hand with all the masters of the past and see them face to face. You will see with the same eye that they see with and hear with the same ear. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Don't you want to pass this barrier? Then concentrate yourself into this Mu with your 360 bones and 84,000 pores, making your whole body one great inquiry. Day and night work intently at it. Do not attempt nihilistic or dualistic interpretations. It is like having bolted a red-hot iron ball. You try to vomit it out, but cannot. Cast away your discriminating knowledge and consciousness accumulated up till now, and keep on working harder. After a while, when your efforts come to fruition, all the opposition, such as in and out, will naturally be identified. You will then be like a dumb person who has had a wonderful dream. He only knows it personally within himself. Suddenly you break through the barrier. You will astonish heaven and shake the earth. It is as if you have snatched the great sword of General Khan. You kill the Buddha if you meet him. You kill the ancient masters if you meet them. On the brink of life and death, you are utterly free. And in the 6 realms and the 4 modes of life you have, with great joy, a genuine life in complete freedom. Now, how should one strive? With might and main work at this Mu, and be Mu. If you do not stop or waver in your striving, then behold, when the Dharma candle is lighted, the darkness is at once enlightened. Mumon's poem. The dog, the Buddha nature, the truth is manifest in full. A moment of yes and no, lost are your body and soul. Welcome everyone to the opening session at our new space. We are trying to figure out exactly how to utilize the space, and I think so far everybody is doing quite well. Seems like there's a great deal of that, trying to figure out how to do something. And with this koan, it's so utterly simple. We're just trying to figure out what that one sound, that one word means, what it points to. So most of you are familiar with this koan. I think probably most of you have probably had some insight into it. I don't really think that a history lesson with koans, it seems like most people just kind of read through the commentary, but you can do that yourself. You know, at least you get the, I think everybody has a Mumonkan. You can read the history and Mumon's commentary yourself. What I'd like to do is offer you my experience with the koan. So, just so we know who this is, so this is Master Junin. He was a student of Kanan-in. He was not named Joshu. That was the area that he trained in. So we know that a lot of times, you know, the mountain or the temple name follows the teacher of that temple. So we have Joshu. And Joshu, he lived for a very long time, had a really prolific teaching career. It said that he lived 120. I can't imagine. How wonderful, you know, to train, to have the opportunity to figure out things until you're 120. He probably was a pretty sharp guy. And probably pretty compassionate guy, right? Wonderful. So, Nansen was his teacher, and Nansen was very direct, very compassionate, but very direct. Nansen would pull a teaching tool from whatever was in front of him. And for those of you that know of his cat, anything could be a teaching tool, and any moment could be a teaching opportunity. So he was a pretty intense guy, his teacher. We talk about barriers in Mumon's commentary. He talks about barriers, passing the barrier. And it's used in Zen to describe a tool which allows you to walk through some form of a door. So you could kind of think of these barriers as openings or doors that are left for us to walk through by a teacher or by a friend or by a fellow Sangha member. We're all teachers and we're all students. At some point in time it flips and flops. We should never forget that. But these are doors, barriers. But we think of a barrier like, well, what do we think? We think of a barrier, you know, as something that stops something that actually is solid, something that actually has form. And with all of those examples, I say something. And exactly, something. We think of a barrier as something. But Zen barriers are no thing. It's all smoke and mirror. It's all trickery. There's nothing there. Joshu kind of, comes the thief in the night and opens the door, to walk through, to steal things from you, give you the illusion that there's something that is prohibiting you from moving forward. And there's nothing there. With this being said, we spend an awful lot of time dealing with nothing that's there. A lot of time figuring out that there's nothing there. What thing is there? What is there? What is there? Is it this? Is it that? So we sit in Zazen and we go through all of these things. What is it? What is the barrier? And the pivotal moment is always the realization that we are suckers. That there was never anything there to begin with. Nothing at all. But we're looking for something. Something. It says that not to cast away the discriminating mind are all phantoms haunting trees and plants. So that's actually something that comes out of Chinese lore. And it's believed that if you don't have a good death, if you are pulled back into this world of form or this state, that you will be unhappy and unsettled, and you'll suffer like hungry ghosts. You could kind of think of hungry ghosts have no foundation. They have no solidification. And again, we use these words, be very, very careful, because it's just like barrier. When I say no foundation or no solidification, I don't mean that there's something solid or there's something there, but actually the opposite. So when we don't have something that tethers us, when we are unsure and questioning and questioning and questioning, what happens to our mind? Right? Just think of us as kind of, what happens when you see have you ever seen one of those garbage bags or trash bags that blows in the wind and it does amazing things? And especially in parking lots or in open spaces, it'll just be a bag or a leaf or a piece of plastic, and it kind of dances and then, falls, and it's just blowing this way and that way, and then it just kind of disappears, right? And you could kind of think of these phantoms, right? Phantom has no foundation, has no form, as kind of like that bag or that leaf kind of just being blown around in the wind, right? Then think about yourself and the state of mind many times, where you're just being blown around by this thought and that want and that desire. Just kind of blown around. And this is what he means. There's no foundation. There's no awareness. We're just being blown around here and there, by wind, by form, by concept, by construct. And just like wind, when we look to see what's there, it's gone. There's nothing there. So what are we being blown around by? Nothing. What holds the gate open? Nothing. Nothing. So, talks about see them face to face, see them with the same eyes and see them with the same ears. And again, I don't want to read this verbatim, but those who have passed the barrier will not only see Joshu clearly, but will go hand in hand with all the masters of the past. See them face to face. You will see with the same eye that they see with and hear with the same ear. There's a saying, and I'm not overly familiar with Christian doctrine, but there's a saying in Christianity about having eyes but cannot see, having ears but cannot hear. And I think very much so it's pointing to the same thing that Mumon is pointing to. That we have ears and we hear, but then again, we don't. Right? Because just like that bag blowing around, what's in our mind most of the time? It's just ideas and desires blowing around. Right? So we hear many times what we want to hear, what's blowing around in here. And we see what we want to see, depending on what's blowing around in here. So we don't really see in this sense. We don't really hear in this sense. It's like many times somebody will say something to you, and you'll say, "Oh yeah, I understand. Right? And a lot of times you may think that you do. I know I do. Somebody will say something, and I really think I understand what they say. But then at some point in time I realized that I didn't. That I really didn't hear what was being said. I only heard what I allowed these winds to let me hear or want to hear. It's said that when you speak to somebody with a conversation, that they only hear 3 minutes of what you say. 3 minutes. So when you're talking to somebody, they're only hearing 3 minutes, the first 3 minutes of what you're saying. The rest after that, they're not really hearing. And it shows you that inner state, how easy it is for those winds to kick up, to begin to distort, to carry us away from the conversation, from what's being said, from what's right in front of us. So many times, especially when it comes to counseling, we have to learn actually to listen. And it's silly, right? Well, we all know how to listen. No, we don't. We don't know how to listen. If we can only hold on for 3 whole minutes, no, we don't know how to listen. And probably those 3 minutes, I don't know, I think it's probably even less than that we actually hear. And then we start. And Zen practice is very much like this too. In counseling we call it active listening. And it's an active process, as the name points to. Meaning it's an event, it's an occurrence. It's active, it's moving. So we always have to be there. We have to keep bringing ourselves to the present, to make sure that we're hearing really what's being said, that we're watching really what's being communicated. And it's something that we have to learn because we're so out of shape, even people that are social workers or helpers or just people that feel, called or motivated to help other people, still have to condition ourselves to learn ourselves, to learn how to listen. And that's what we do here. And this is what Mumon's talking about. He wants us to really see He wants us to really hear. And when we do, as he says, we are none other than the patriarchs themselves. We see through their eyes, not their eyes. We see through the eyes. We hear through the ears. We become Joshu. There's in another koan it talks about intertwining your eyebrows with patriarchs, and kind of think that close, it's so close that your eyebrows are intertwined with theirs, and it's all pointing to truly hearing and truly seeing, truly being. I looked up on Google the answer for what is Mu, and there was no results. There was explanation of the koan and where it came from, but there's not one Mu is this, other than it's also, I guess, part of the Greek alphabet, Mu. Right? So, but that's it. I mean, and it's interesting because, on Google, there's always an answer, right? And it's just so amazing, a koan, what he lived. So this koan, who I don't know exactly when this mondo occurred, but he lived. So we could say it's probably like in the early 800s, because his lifespan was 778 to 897. So. But after all that time, nobody can answer. Right? Nobody can offer the formula. Nobody can write it down. All this time. There may be commentary on it, but no matter what, it's like trying to hold water in your hands. It just falls from between your fingers. You just can't do it. Remember when you were a kid trying to keep the water from the ocean away, for those of you that like the ocean, or try to keep the water in an area? You just couldn't do it, Your bearers would be washed away, or something would ruin the little pool that you have, and all the water would leak out. So no matter what, you just can't hold on to it. And so is this koan. And that's why, it would be much easier if I had set Dharma talks for all of these koans and just offered them. But this is the way that I see these koans, and I see them as an activity, and as an activity, they're always changing. They're always changing for me. And these koans, even the ones that we so-called past, are probably changing for you too. So how do I even open a door, or how do I even just give some minor, trivial direction to you? For something that's always moving and changing. So I think Dharma Talk should have a fresh date on them, right? And then they expire after so long. So these Zen teachers out there that are using the Dharma Talks from 15 years ago, you know, they say, oh, no, sorry, that's expired. We don't want that. Put it in the reduced section. But anyway, and I don't say that to be egotistical at all or anything like that, or to put anybody down. My point once again is, you know, this is an activity. It's an event. And there's no way to grab anything and bring it and hold it and contain it and give it to anybody else. Because there's nothing to give anymore. It's changed. And I have nothing to give. I can't give it to you. You can't give it to me. Because you must see with your own eyes. You must hear with your own ears. Mine do you no good. And I think many times too, the Dharma Talks, I mean, I wonder, did they really do any good? I have to really think about it. I know they're inspiring. I mean, when Genjo Osho or when Edo Rishi would give Dharma Talks, you know, I was always inspired by them, but to be honest with you, I think most of you know too that, you know, when they're over and you're sitting on your cushion, they really do you no good at all. There's nothing to hold on to. It's gone. And we may be encouraged, and I think encouragement is good. I like to be encouraged for sure. And I like to be stimulated, and I definitely think they do that. But as far as helping you, there's no help anybody can give you. Don't need any. But getting to that point of not needing any, they need some help. We all do. So, many times we tread in dangerous waters when we begin to use Buddhist diction and Western Buddhist diction is immature and dangerous, and it's fundamentally from a position of the concrete or the conceptual. We many times use our words as though they are it, and we forget many times that they are not it, that they can never be it. And we have words, and I am guilty, because again, you know, we want to encourage each other, right? And we need encouragement, but in doing so, the old saying about Buddha, you know, let words fall from his golden lips and forever will entangle. It's very much like that. We all care. We all do, or we wouldn't be here. And we care for each other. We care for ourselves. We care for the world around us, because this is not an easy practice. If you didn't, you surely would not be here. Surely not. So we out of compassion many times use these words to try to give some direction or some motivation, and words like self. Then we have, you know, almost you know, like a buzz phrase. You know, no self is true self. Oh, that's much better. Much better, yeah. This means, a head upon a head, a hat upon a hat. Yeah, that does a lot of good. But we do it, and we do it because we do care, and we really are trying our best to help or to convey our experiences. So, with that being said, if we're cautious and aware that, do you ever walk through the fields and do you ever see those round little, they're probably seeds. We used to call them hitchhikers when we were a kid. Because if you had socks on or shoelaces and you would walk through this field or whatever, it'd be all over your socks and all over your shoelaces, and there's no way that you could, get them. It takes you, like 20 minutes just to pull all these things off, and then you have the little, barbs all over your stuff. And that's sometimes, walking through this field, this conceptual field of descriptors of words. A lot of times when we come out the other end, we're full of all of these things. We're full of all of these words and ideas. And we still have to walk through the field. That's the thing. We still have to move through that aspect of ourselves. We use concepts. Almost probably 99% of the time we use concepts. So learning to walk through that field and try to avoid, to see the seeds, whatever you call them, but when you come out the other side, to make sure that you pull them off is very, very important. So we use ideas like self and no self, and from a Western psychological perspective, we carry in the idea of the ego, which is a real problem, because what we've done is we've taken something that is empty, or something that is hollow, just a descriptor, and we've solidified it, and then we've tried to make it fluid again, as if it is a mental process. Oh, okay, so it's not like a rock or a stone or this desk, or the book. It's not like that, but it is something within the mind. It is now a process, or a facet of consciousness, or the survival mechanism of the organism, right? But anyway, we all know that ego, from Western perspective, is is psychological speak for function, cognitive function. And we look at it, and what's dangerous about that is when we look at it, we still think that there is something called ego that is a process now. So we've taken something and we've said, okay, well, what makes a personality? Okay, so maybe it's not just our skin and our hair and our form. Maybe there's something that we can't see, right? So let's create a word for it. Okay, well, we'll call it ego, right? Okay, now that it's ego, so ego now is a process that is inside, a functioning process that's inside. So we've taken something and we've moved it away from the concrete, and we think that we've remolded it or coined it to encompass something less concrete called a process, right? It's my process. not that one. It's my process. It's in my head. It's a process in my head. It's not that much better than just, foregoing the whole ego and psychological thing and process thing and just sticking with what you can see and touch, because it still is a concept. It still is something that is grabbed onto us, or we've grabbed onto it, really, right? And we're kind of carrying it around. And when we look at things like self in the same aspect, so we take it and we say, well, true self is no self, but we're still validating that there is even something called self. When we look and trace self and no self, has not, Buddha nature, not Buddha nature, you see how it carries over? When we look into these things and when we reduce them further, we see that we have to even relinquish the idea of the ethereal or the immaterial, as though, do you understand, as though it is a process now. It is a process within my mind. It is a functioning, and it's not. It's an event. And there's no process. There's no self. There's no ego. There's no self. There's no ego. Beyond these things. So we have, in working with Mu, we get to a point where we start off with concrete. This is me, our normal everyday lives, right? Look in the mirror, oh, this is Joriki, this is me. And then as we practice, we go back and we realize that maybe this isn't me that I see in the mirror, and maybe me is a process in my mind. And the issue is process, my mind. So to think that there is even interior or exterior, or process or no process, is still holding on to duality and still holding on to conceptual expression or experience. Not really seeing, not really hearing, not really touching. Because even if we think, well, I am nothing, I am a creation of ideas and thoughts, and I know that the creation of what I know as self is a formation of my mind. Do you understand? So when we reduce, we have to watch out that we don't stop. And trick ourselves into thinking that we have let go, or that we have gone beyond. Because we have to let go of everything. And it's an interesting process of letting go of everything, because the first things that we find out that we let go of are what? I like to ask questions in Dharma talks so people answer. I know I'm not very traditional. Oh well. Okay. So what is the first thing when we sit down? What happens? What do we do?
Pain, knees hurt.
Absolutely. We just think it. My knees hurt, pain. You know what I mean? You know, when is it going to be over? When's lunch? I'm tired. You have all these thoughts going on, right? Just, you know. And as we begin to sit, then we go down to a feeling level, right? So we have moved through the once again the kind of concrete conceptual thought process, and all of a sudden we're like, oh God, right? And it happens to all of us, and it's wonderful, and it should happen to all of you. And if you think you have to hold it back, please don't. Because you're moving through that field, and don't let those briars catch you. You just keep walking through that field, right? And to experience it. And then we move even past that. Now, all of a sudden, when we move past that, we start really getting at, the heart of where all of these others, like layers of an onion, where all these other layers, are. We're kind of peeling these layers off. And then we get to fear. And fear is right at the center of all of those other layers. It's right at the center. And then we start realizing, I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of being judged. I'm afraid of loss. I'm afraid of death. I'm afraid of pain. I'm afraid of this. And, we start, not being overwhelmed by that emotional level that's just above. But now we're kind of really in this, this real deep level of where all of those emotions and where all of those superficial thoughts are emanating from and why. So we're really starting to get deep. And if you notice, it's not that we're accumulating anything. It's that we're moving through that field and we're pulling those briars off, or those seeds or hitchhike, whatever you want to call them, we're pulling them off as we go through. We're moving through. And when we move through it, it's gone. Nothing there. Where was the barrier? What was holding us back? Then we find out there's nothing there. We come out the other side. Where is it? Where did that feeling, where did the thought, where did the fear, where did it all go? And then when we really start getting past that fear level, which is really, really, really deep, right? Then even that dissipates. And we could say, oh, well then you unify. Then you become one. And those are very nice, and I understand what they mean when they say that. I'm not trying to degrade somebody trying to express themselves. But my point is, wow, then all of a sudden we have briars again. Unity. No. No. It's an event. If you want to see with the patriarch's eyes, you must see with their eyes. They must be yours. Must be your ears. You must hear with your ears. Truly hear. no you involved in it at all. So it's an event. It's a gateless gate, there's nothing there. So, where does the event go then? Do you see? There's only one way there. And it's through these gateless gates. When it's interesting because no matter what koan, I did this koan 20 years ago, and it's interesting because they're all this koan. So again, they're all this koan. So I could probably go on and on and on and on and on and on and on about it, right? So it's hard to I'm learning to shut up and not be so worried. Mumon says, make your whole body into one great inquiry. And this is what I'm talking about. So what do you think? Does it mean that you should really pay attention? That you should listen really hard? That you should try to clear your mind and let go of self and let go of grasping and all of that? Is that what you think he's saying? That we should just, everything we are. Or maybe we should think, well, I am everything. So it's with everything I'm going to experience Mu. Right? Is that what he's saying? Make your whole body into one great inquiry. Brings to light the man of great strength. And they say his body is so big, there's no place to put it. It's so big. It says, when he looks down on heaven and hell. When he lifts his leg, he kicks up the scented oceans. So what do we think Mumon's talking about? With your whole body, make it one great inquiry. I remember working on this koan, and I remember the atmosphere in the Zendo was kind of like popcorn popping. You could tell because there were a lot of new students, myself included, and Edo-Roshi was still there, and although he's done things that hurt many people, he still was a good teacher. And in session, you could tell when the new students, when somebody would experience directly and see with the patriarch's eyes and hear with their ears and feel with their fingers and see with their skin, hear with their hair. And something just changes, and most of us have done Mu in here. And it doesn't last for very long. And afterwards we get so excited, and many times what happens is now all of a sudden, we have a new type of briar. We've been caught walking through, and we want to replicate it. It becomes solidified again, and it becomes now Mu. What is Mu? Oh, I know what Mu is. And we just kind of round and round and round. Nothing to hold on to. There's nothing there. There's no self. There's no self. There's no Mu. There's no Mu. And when somebody would have this realization, you could see it. And most of the time, I remember coming back, I was like, yeah! and there were other people too. And I remember that day it was customary with Mu that right before Itarushi used to say, you're on the edge of a razor. Almost there. Just a little bit. And it was customary to go and scream, "Mo!" at the top of your lungs over Beecher Lake, to just push. We're talking about, this is how thin this last membrane is, where you're like, you're just teetering. And sometimes, most of the time, you just fall back the other way. And there's once in a while where you fall through. And that's really what Joshu hopes and wants you to do. And for those of us that may think that we have moved past Mu, if you think that, then you need to go back and work on Mu again. Because you have. I'll end just on his Mumonkan's poem as customary to move through. It says, the dog, the Buddha nature, the truth is manifest and full. A moment of yes and no, lost are your body and soul. The dog, the Buddha nature, all these barriers, all these layers, we move through them. Now, does this mean that they're not it? Is this what I'm saying?